I'm going to take you guys on a little journey today and talk about what I like to call the Surly experiment. As you know, our shop focuses on rehabbing used bikes for resale. However, we did in the spring of 2023 make the decision to start dipping our toes into a few new models. And Surly was the obvious choice for two reasons. One, we already were purchasing products through their parent company, Quality Bicycle Products. And the second thing is, we had been struggling for some time to get a consistent flow of gravel bikes into our storefront. And so, because Surly primarily makes gravel and adventure style bikes, it just seemed like a good fit for us. So when Surly came out with the preamble model in April of 2023, we jumped on board and got a handful of them in the shop in order to see how they would be received. Since then, we have slowly picked up more models, and you can see behind me I've got the Midnight Special, the Bridge Club, and the Ogre. And then if you can see over my other shoulder, we've got one of the preamble drop bars sitting against the wall there that we use kind of as our accessory display bike. So I'm going to spoil the result for you. By and large, the experiment failed. And this is not meant to be a video bashing Surly. I love the brand. But from a business standpoint, it really ended up not making sense for us. And I'll give you a couple reasons why. First reason is if you saw my other videos about the advantages and disadvantages of selling pre-loved versus new, the big issue with new bikes versus used is going to be margin. It's not a big deal if you're moving volume, but for us, our primary customer base is coming in looking for something pre-loved. And so there was a little bit of a mismatch there where people would come in, they weren't really familiar with Surly as a brand, and they weren't really looking to buy things in that budget of $1,000 to $1,500. So what we found is the Surlys were significantly lower turnover than our bread and butter used bikes. For example, in any individual space in our store, the average turnover is about 4 months. Another way of looking at that is we turn all of our inventory 3 times each year. If you look at the Surlys, however, now that we have had them in the store for more than 2 seasons, we're able to get a little bit more data on that, and the turnover is 1/4 as much. So on average, a single Surly sitting in one space, it will take a year and some change for that bike to move. And in a shop of our size with 50 to 100 spaces for bikes, that's just too much valuable real estate that we could be using for a used bike that will turn over a few times. So for example, let's say we have a Surly bike, maybe a Midnight Special. Retail on that's about $2,200. We pay around $1,600. So we would make $600 on that sale. However, it will take us 15 months to turn that bike over. Whereas with a used bike, maybe we make half as much or even less on a sale, but we will turn that spot over 4 times in the same time span of 15 months. So thinking of it as a ratio between your turnover and how much profit you get per sale, the used bikes just make so much more sense for us. The second thing I've noticed in bringing in the Surlys is you are going to be at the mercy of the decisions of the larger parent company. So for example, we paid full retailer price for a size run of preamble drop bars in the spring of 23. And then in the summer of 23, we still had a lot of that inventory left. However, Surly put on a 20% sale. And when you're paying full retailer price, I think for the drop bar at the time, it was somewhere around $630. And so the retail on it was $1,200. And then they put a sale down to, $980 or whatever 20% off was. And so at the end of the day, we were making the same as we would on a used bike sale with that preamble, but we were having to front far more money upfront in inventory costs, and we were having to deal with a product that turns over much more slowly. So between those combination of things, we've just found that it's been more pain than good to keep them in stock, and for that reason, these bikes that you see behind us, we now have on clearance, and once they're gone, they're going to be gone. We'll still retain our status as a non-stocking dealer, and if somebody approaches us wanting a Surly, we can always order one in through quality. However, we're not going to continue with the investment of keeping them on the floor in inventory. From a cash flow standpoint, it just doesn't make as much sense as our used inventory, and there's also that bit of a mismatch in the customer demographics where we primarily deal with people who are getting into cycling, and they don't yet have that familiarity with Surly, which is a little bit more of a cult brand. It's more of a, if you know, you know, and if you don't, you're not impressed. At the end of the day, this was a good experiment, and it helped fortify my belief in the used bike model. A lot of bike shops across the country are struggling since the pandemic has ebbed off. And a lot of that has to do with problems that honestly have been coming into play for decades before the pandemic rolled around. We're in a world that's moving online, and margins for in-store retailer are getting thinner and thinner. So as the bike industry stands today, selling new, you need to be moving a lot of volume in order to keep up with your overhead. However, with the used bike model, you can operate a lot more lean of a business and have a lot more flexibility due to the increased margins. So how do I feel about Surly as a brand? I love them. I will continue to ride their bikes. I will continue to be excited when somebody comes in wanting to order one. But from a business standpoint, I've had to make the hard decision and just look at the numbers and realize our bottom line is going to be better, sticking only to used. And on top of that, we're going to continue to run a more simplified business where we hone in on one demographic. Basically, we're honing in on one avatar with one product or service. If you've sold Surly bicycles in your shop, let us know how it went for you down in the comments. I do suspect that for people who are not focusing on a used-centric model, Surly can work very well for you. I also understand that there comes with all these things increasing returns to scale, and we were kind of dipping our toes into this, which means lower margins as a result of not buying as many from the producer, as well as paying shipping fees that you might not otherwise have if you're a larger volume shop, because if you're buying more than 5 at a time, you get freight on Surly bikes. And as always, thanks for watching. One more thing, I have created a free 21-question bike health assessment. I've got it linked in the description below. It takes just 10 minutes to get it done, and you will get a free assessment of the health of your business. I'll create another video soon detailing exactly what I do with those assessments. But if you're interested in checking it out now, I've got it linked below.